as a right. And joining me to discuss this is Kabanda David, who is the Executive Director, Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights in Uganda. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, viewers. I'm very honored to be here to have this conversation with you this morning. Yeah.
Well, when we talk about your organization, two things that come out. We have the rights in it, human rights, and we have food. So what exactly does your organization do?
Thank you so much. Like you said in the beginning, many times when we talk about human rights, people run to torture, which is okay because that is civil political rights and they also happen. But there is also neglected, let me call it that way, socioeconomic rights, livelihood rights. And those are very central to our day-to-day lives. People need to eat, people need to have good health, people need to have land, people, you see, but these are rights that have not been so much mainstreamed. So my organization and I work towards having a society where everyone's right to adequate living is realized. We strive to make sure that people have food, food safety, food security, but also other rights including land. Because when we talk about food, we are talking about a food systems approach. We are starting from the farm to the fork. Uganda is an agrarian country, meaning that many of us are farmers, whether you like it or not. Even those people who, some of us who do like white collar jobs, the side hustle for everyone, for most of us, is a garden. You hear people, you know, I must invest in agriculture, I have a farm, I have goats, I have, you know, poultry. So agriculture and us are one and the same thing. But the most painful part is we have not known the legal framework within which this happens. And we have suffered losses, and many people have lost lives. Many people are living very, you know, very worrying and undeserving lives. Many people are sick because of what we eat, how we grow food. So the entire value chain is sick. This is why we come in and say, okay, but law is a tool. We can use this tool if people just go to understand how law is very important and to understand that food is a fundamental right. In fact, if you do not have food, you cannot enjoy any other right. It starts with food. Our bodies to be healthy, it starts with food. Our bodies to function well, for you to be able to think, you need food, whether you like it or not. Our bodies to be able to take on, see opportunities and make advantage of those opportunities. We need food. Our children to study well and, you know, become excellent in academic-wise, but also professionally when we grow up, we need food. If it is not safe, then it is not food. Yes.
Now, you talked about the law. Yeah. Is there any specific law act that you can quote and say during execution of your duties, this is where you drive the powers? Because one would say, I'm going to hold government for failing to provide food for people. It is more of individual merit. If I don't work, I don't cultivate, then... So because usually in other forms of human rights, there's someone to press who you feel is depriving others of that right. Now when it comes here, who is depriving others of the right to food? Even if prisoners in prisons, they never miss a meal. So where do you, how do you carry on?
This is very important, and thank you so much for asking such a question. When we talk about the right to food, we don't mean that government should actually feed people. That's not what we mean. In fact, governments world over do not have the capacity to feed people, because it is, first of all, expensive, and two, it is culturally relative. What we eat in some cultures is not eaten. You've had people who eat snakes. You've had people who eat monkeys. You've had people who eat dogs.
Cats.
Some people eat cats, and that is their food. But I don't think there is even a culture in Uganda that eats that. Even some animals, you may find that this culture eats this part, this culture doesn't eat that part. So it is very difficult for government to give people food. When we talk about rights and the right to food, we mean an enabling environment. What the government needs to do is to make sure that the environment is enabling. Let me give you an example. In our constitution, the 1995 constitution, it is there is a legal constitutional obligation on part of government to establish a national food reserve system, which they have never established, by the way, since 1995. And we are still demanding for that. Secondly, we do not have a food authority in Uganda, for example, and we are still demanding for that. And I'm very happy to learn, like 2 days ago, Cabinet approved to have an authority under Ministry of Agriculture. We are clapping, we are very happy that that authority is coming. But beyond that, government in 2019 passed the Human Rights Enforcement Act. So this is a law which many people can use. Right now, people, this is a time of cultivation, people are buying agricultural inputs, for example. But do you know that many people are selling fake agricultural inputs? Now, the moment you buy those fake agricultural inputs, you make two losses. One, you lose money, but you're going to lose your health. How? The money, the moment you put in your effort, you all know if you plant and things do not germinate, for example, if you bought fake seeds, the seed company has stolen your money. It has taken your money away from you. Secondly, if you have planted, then you have, you know, if crops grow, then you have to get income out of your produce. But if someone sold you fake seeds, how will you get produce? Someone is cheating, and in the process, someone is stealing from you. That is a violation of your right. You can actually go to court using the Human Rights Enforcement Act and claim that your right to economic rights were violated. And we have used this in Kalangala, in Chiboga, in Chankwanzi, Buyende, and you find that people are getting their rights. They get redress. That Human Rights Enforcement Act is a very beautiful act. Then another level is if you bought, for example, fake agrochemicals. They harm you, first of all. Many people are sick, and many people don't know. If you went to the Cancer Institute today, the oncologists will tell you many people are getting cancers because of the agricultural produce that we are, maybe chemicals. But people don't know that you can even sue a company that sold you those agrochemicals that caused you sickness. Many people don't know. We eat it on a daily basis. So we are here to speak to fellow Ugandans that because we interact with the agriculture system almost on a daily basis, either in the garden or food being transported. You see how cows are transported from the farms to the abattoir. You see how food is transported, the vegetables, nakati, people are sitting on top. All these are violations, and we just need to speak to people to understand that every Ugandan has a right to adequate food. Yes.
Well, it must also be safe food, not only adequate food, but something that is trickling my mind. There's so much wrong seemingly happening. If you look at food security, the chemicals you've talked about, but how do you come in? Because we've lamented, we have this, that, but I mean, how do you come in as an organization? Do you offer legal services? I know many people who have been cheated. People, you have ticks disturbing your farm.
Yes.
And if they were this size, after spraying or dumping these cows, then they become times 2 the size. You have some weed, and you go to buy these herbicides that sprayed and all that. It just becomes, but it seems business as normal. I bought fake seeds, and you just continue. We see how cows are transported, and someone will tell you that is dangerous because they release a substance because of the pain and torture they go through, and that meat. But it is lamentation. We just lament and lament.
We in our organization was conceptualized around exactly what you're talking about. There are these problems, but you see, for a long time, because we as a country, Uganda is a pearl of Africa. When it comes to food, people do not see a problem because we grew up walking in the village. You pick jackfruit, you pick guavas, you pick, so people did not connect, they don't even understand or see it yet that food can be a cause of death or food can be a cause of morbidity. So our organization came in to now create awareness on the law. Many people do not understand the legal dynamics of daily life. Let me demonstrate this. You see, Uganda did not, Uganda cannot be a country without a law. The East African community can't be without a law. There is the East African Community Treaty. The African Union cannot be African Union without a law. Without even going further than that, let me come to your districts. You've had people asking for districts. No district can ever be without a law. You understand? So everything that is done, it is done within the law. So why would anyone think that your daily life is not controlled by law? So many people don't know. So what we do as an organization is we do a lot of legal empowerment for people now to understand that the laws must not lie with you. The person who is, for example, selling to you seeds, the person who is selling this maybe panga that you use one day and you know it breaks, is taking the money. So there must be accountability. But beyond that, some leaders at district level, even at national level, also do not understand that the relationship between their communities and them is a legal relationship. And the communities also do not yet understand that you can hold your leaders accountable. You've heard that sometimes good government programs like Operation Wealth Creation, NADS, I have ever seen with my eyes a lorry of cassava cuttings that was delivered in a sub-county in Chankwanzi, and the cassava stems were dry. You understand? These cassava stems have been brought for you as a community, and you accept, everyone says, they have brought dry, stems, and they go back and sleep. Meanwhile, someone is stealing from you. Someone has gone, into government coffers. Government has released, for example, money to buy goats for you, and they quote these, figures. They are very expensive, and then you accept fake things.
So what do you do in that incident? As your organization, what do the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights Uganda do people contact you for help? Do you just sensitize them that, well, this is what you're supposed to do? Because what happens, we have the less privileged, and the privileged are robbing from them, stealing from the poor.
So we have, like I've told you, we train local governments about their legal responsibilities, but also communities. In our organization, we also have a program, social justice and strategic litigation. So we help communities to litigate. We do public interest litigation, And in public interest litigation, it is not adversarial. It is not that whether we hate government or we hate anyone, but it is when we see an issue, we will come in from a public spirited angle. But also on top of that, we also offer pro bono. There's in law what we call pro bono legal services. So if your rights have been violated or someone has come to you, they've taken away your produce and they have not paid you, we give you that legal support. If someone is chasing you off your land, we no longer go to court and use these conventional legal procedures of using a plaint. No, we now use a notice of motion and use the Human Rights Enforcement Act and claim the land as a human right. It is exciting that we have even been able to get redress in 2 months. In Uganda, if you have a land case, it takes between 5 to 10 years. We want to speak to you Ugandans. There is a law. It is called the Human Rights Enforcement Act. You don't need a lawyer. You don't even need money. It even allows you to go to court and speak your language with the magistrate. Since 1995, we do not have enforcement of human rights at magistrates' court. Yet the magistrates' courts are the nearer courts to the people. Now, under this act, the magistrates they have the power and the authority to entertain human rights cases. If you have anyone chasing you out of your land illegally, you can walk into a magistrate's court. You don't even need a lawyer. This is what we want to tell you. If you have a problem, you can contact us. If you went to our website, the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, we have standby lawyers. We have support from international development law organization. They give us money to do that. So we have a lined up, list of lawyers who can support you if you have feared. Or if you have bought fake seeds, things that I've been talking about. You see, why I insist on agricultural produce and maybe inputs, it's because 80% of Ugandans are in that sector. But it is a sector where law does not happen. The people who sell to us inputs set their price, and the farmer will, there is no negotiation. But the farmer, by the time you produce, you sell at a price which is already determined by another force which you don't know. So there is no support for you as a farmer, for you as an ordinary Ugandan. So this is why we are now coming in. If anyone cheats you in the process, we can go to court for you, and it doesn't take long. It takes between 1 month to 2 months. You have your redress. Someone is ordered to pay you. Someone is ordered to get off your land. What more do you want? At least the government has given us the law, the Human Rights Enforcement Act. In fact, when I saw it, when I saw the president signing that law in 2019, I was like, wow, if all Ugandans got to know how important this tool is, then they will not be, crying. We are promoting adequate living. Many people are living below, below. You see, doesn't it scare you that many Ugandans, 40% of Ugandans cannot earn $1 a day? And it doesn't mean that Ugandans are not working. They are working, but the value chain, they are cheated in the process. And they don't know that they can enforce their rights. Some of them have tried before. But because we have had a very stringent, you see, law is not a friend to anyone. Law is double-edged. You go to it, you have a genuine claim. If you don't know how to present it well, they end up making you pay the person who has actually violated your rights. The good thing with this law, all that doesn't matter. Go to a magistrate, explain yourself, put your evidence before that magistrate. The law requires the magistrate to even summon the person you are complaining about. And then this person comes, you put your case, use the language. Before this law, the only language we used in court is English. The court's language is English. But this law makes an exception. Okay. If the claim is a human rights claim, they allow you to use any language. It is now the burden is on the court, if they don't understand your language, to get an interpreter. And I want to tell Ugandans that we have seen exciting results. We have been supporting women. At least our project is now in Chiboga, Chankwanza and Buyende, and we have seen that using this law, within 1 to 3 months, someone has a judgment. Someone has their land back.
So this law being that good, like you were telling us this morning, what should government do to popularize this law? So that, because this to many people seemingly is new.
Yes.
Is seemingly new, but has been here for some time, 2019.
Yes.
So what is needed, and why aren't we seeing, why do we still have people opting for other measures? Farmers are cheated here and there, the land is also another problem. Yet we have such a strong, very flexible law in place.
The challenge is sometimes when the government passes a law, there is a particular interest group. In this particular respect, there were civil society groups that were pushing for it, and the president signed it. But I want to tell you, many government officials don't know that there is such a law. Unfortunately, many lawyers also don't know that such a law exists. And again, you may even find that many judicial officers don't know that this law exists. So what we would want the government to do, maybe through the Ministry of National Guidance, is to create awareness of this law. That is number one. Then number two, we want to appeal to the judiciary to popularize this law, and the Judicial Training Institute to give maybe training to magistrates on how to use this law. And we also would want to call upon other civil society who are promoting access to justice, and development partners, the embassies in Uganda who are willing to take on social justice for the people, to take on this law. But even you Ugandans, if we speak to you, kindly listen. We have told you that, you see, for example, the agrochemicals are killing you, but many of you do not listen. Yesterday, I met ladies who work in a market in Gayaza. And you know what made me sick? They buy mancozeb. Mancozeb is that whitish stuff you see on tomatoes. It is a cancerous chemical. It is a killer chemical. But we use it in almost all vegetables.
Do you know why they use it?
They spray.
Do you know why they do that?
That it helps. They told me that the tomatoes,
it prolongs what we call
the shelf life of the tomatoes. But you are killing yourself, and you are killing the people who are buying the tomatoes. So, and you see, this is, I want everyone to listen to this. In Europe right now, that chemical was banned. You cannot export anything. They have very strong machines that detect those chemicals. Even if you wash the tomato, they can detect that in its lifespan of growing, you used it, they will reject your produce. Now, those particular countries license their companies to export to us. We are also human beings. It takes us to say no. And I want to encourage Ugandans to sue all the market vendors who are selling to you, products that are, infused into chemicals. This is where we are going. For me, I don't know whether, sometimes when I speak to people, they say, but are you going to sue the entire country? I may not sue the entire country, but the next step that I'm going to be doing is suing the market vendors and the people who are in charge of these markets. If we find chemicals on these products, we shall sue you. Let me tell you, many people have been advised, can you take a vegetable smoothie? And many people maybe blend spinach to drink it raw. But do you know the amount of chemicals that are in spinach? I was in the market yesterday, and I looked at how the women who are selling these tomatoes and everything are misusing illegal acts of putting more chemicals on these agro products. So we want to encourage Ugandans. You don't need to suffer there is at least a law which we can use, even if it is land, even if it is agricultural inputs, whether tools or chemicals or vaccines, or even if it is feeds. You know, some people sell, you know, feeds which are contaminated and maybe your poultry dies in the process. Even if it is buying food in these restaurants. Do you know that some restaurants use chemicals in the food? Have you had people, mingling matoke or squeezing matoke using polythene bags, using, I think it is time now, before you are served the food, go to the kitchen. What do you lose? If I enter your restaurant and I want to eat food, before I eat it, I want to see where you are preparing the food from. If I find that you are preparing food with kavera, then I have a right to sue you, because you are exposing me to carcinogens, carcinogens, the cancer-causing properties or materials. So this is how far we have gone. This is how far we want everyone to go. In developed countries, you cannot find this madness. Nowhere. At least there is regulation. What government has not yet done is enforcement. Local governments are supposed, one, to regulate and to monitor and to enforce public health laws. This doesn't happen. When you want to open up a restaurant, they only ask you to pay license fees. You understand?
Sometimes health inspectors pop in once in a while in some of these places.
Yeah, but you realize that they don't care who is even preparing the food, whether they are trained or not. Someone will say, but I grew up cooking food at home. But you see, this is not food for 1, 2, 3 people. You are preparing food for the public. Maybe in an average restaurant serves over 100 people per day. If that food is dangerous or contaminated, 100 people, those are 100 families. Because the people who come to eat in your restaurants have families. People have families of over 8, 10 people. So you don't care. You've taken my 5,000 or 10,000. You want to take 10,000, but you are killing an entire family. What if the food that you are some of you cook beans with panado, others are putting you've heard about sodium glutamate. It has components that that have the capacity to deal with your brain. So they change your brain. Instead of getting satiety, the brain will keep asking for more food, and you don't know how that happens. People say, I'm craving. They don't know why. But you ate food where someone put a chemical, and that chemical is causing addiction, but you don't know. It is called sodium glutamate. I don't fear to talk about it. If you eat aromat, if you eat these other flavors that they add in food, that component is there. It knocks your brain. It's like cigarette, because now the new cigarette is food. We have had people who talk about the nutritionists and the dietitians who are advising the nation about food, but people don't seem to listen. And you know why?
I think it's not about people not seeming to listen. Maybe some have no alternative to what is available, and others don't believe things can be the way you're viewing them in a third world country. People get to food as a chance. Some people in this country, a meal is an opportunity. It's a miracle. It's a chance to some of them. Then where do you get to look into these nitty-gritties here and there, where this food has originated, all that?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's people not wanting to know, but because they have been ignorant of what is happening, and then second, they haven't seen precedent set of those that have violated this law.
Okay. So, and maybe it brings me back where we started from, when you asked me now what you are talking about a right. Is this a right? Now, do you clearly see that at an individual level, you may not have the capacity to prevail over food industry? This is where the government comes in, because wherever there is a right, the right creates obligations on government. And for the right to adequate food, we have the obligation to protect, to respect and fulfill. The government has an obligation to protect us from those third parties to protect us from the food industry. So it is the government to put in place an infrastructure that can, because sometimes people just want to eat. The moment I say restaurant opened up, I know that there is a local government, there is a Ministry of Health, there is a Ministry of Agriculture. So there is a government that helps me. Like it would be dangerous if we said everyone should have their own security. But as a country, we know we have our security covered. You get what I mean? So even for food, the statement you made, like many people don't have food, many people have, you know, maybe they get food or they get what to eat as a chance, it clearly shows you that there is a problem. The government is not respecting the right to food, because the government must establish national reserves to make sure that nobody goes to bed hungry. In fact, if the government did that, you'd even see that school fees would be down, because schools would be buying from the national food reserves. The schools will not be now going to commercial dealers in food. Reserves? Yes, you see, then the government determines how, because right now we have indication that we are going to have a bumper harvest. True. Of maize. Of course, we'll have issues with beans because it has been too much rain. But now the government has information that we are going into a bumper harvest. What do? You go and buy that food because the food is going to be cheap. In the near 2, 3, 4 months. Now, when you have it, because it is world over, when farmers have a bumper harvest, it is like white and black, that the following season it is going to be scarce, because they don't get a lot of money and they don't have encouragement to grow more food. So if you have a well-structured system, then you know that, okay, if I have 1,000 schools, those schools will be buying from the government structures, such that they don't bill parents with too much school fees, because much of the money goes into feeding. Then you'll also know that government's food, because many people want to run for refined flour, for what? Government can't do that, shouldn't do that actually, because you need to produce food which is high in fiber, and that food is relatively low in price. You understand? So the people who do not have a lot of money will be buying from government stores. Then those who have a lot of money can go and buy refined flour, you understand? But we don't have that system. How I wish that the government also takes it over and they create a system where there are checks and balances. Where there is too much food, they take it. Where there is scarcity, they release it. It is an embarrassment, dear Ugandans and the government, and it is also immoral that in this country, which is called the Pearl of Africa, we have people who die, who literally die because of starvation. The children who are dying because of starvation. I want to speak to government. Many children who are in UPE and USE are not studying. You think that they are studying. They are not. Nobody can ever study on an empty stomach. Some teachers are not teaching. Do you know why? Because they don't have food. Some money that you send to these UPE schools, I sit on like 3, 4 boards of schools, and the problems are teachers feeding, children's feeding. In the afternoon, everyone is sleeping, everyone is yawning. How do you expect those people to have grades? In fact, this is not only immoral, but it is illegal, because although other children, maybe in Kampala and elsewhere, are studying, other children are not studying. And why they are not studying? It is because of food. And why? It is because we have not embraced a legal, concept when it comes to food. We don't care about the responsibilities. We don't care about the rights in food. We must, as a country, now learn that this legal framework around food concerns everyone. We should hold our leaders accountable, and the leaders must also hold us as beneficiaries accountable.
Well, that sounds so sweet.
Yeah, thank you.
But doubtably practical.
I don't know why you doubt. Because, yes, and I don't blame you when you doubt, because this is not something that has been happening. If in other countries it is happening, are we too special to do it? Let me give you an example. I was in UK. You cannot sell sugar-sweetened beverages in any school. And even outside the school, there is a law. You must have your shop 100 meters away from the school. If they can do that, why is it impossible to be done here? In our schools, the deadly place in any school in Uganda is a school canteen. And the parents don't know.
Well, just time is not so much. I just have a minute left. Of course, there's so much that you've taught us regarding the law and how people must equip themselves, because it's a very good tool. But I'll just have your parting shot.
So what I want to speak to Ugandans is kindly the food system in Uganda is sick. Why? We are using chemicals, and when we go to eat, we eat things that we don't know. When you go to the supermarket to buy anything, kindly look at the expiry date and look at the nutritional, list. Don't just buy, because they've taken your money, they are taking your health, you are going to die, and they'll take the profit. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. That is David Kabanda, who happens to be the Executive Director, Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, Uganda. I hope you've learned so much regarding the fact that there is a law that can protect you against this exploitation, but also very much talking about providing food and safe food. See you in the next hour. Ruben with Sports Next. Good morning.
Juko.
Yo.
What you go? Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Uganda, haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but